Hi Science Rockstars. This video is going to help you set up a data table if you are comparing two different things. So we talk about having independent variables. In this case, you have two intervals, right? Two levels of your independent variable. So you're comparing big shoes and small shoes. You're comparing two different brands of mascara. You're looking at uh, adding a protein bar to your diet or just adding equivalent calories to the protein bar. Whatever it is you're doing, you're comparing just two things. To set up your data table to compare just two things, in fact, anytime that you make a data table, what you're comparing, your independent variable, goes first. And we always called this the Mr. Ramaker rule. I worked with a teacher for years. Kids loved him, and he was a really good science teacher. But kids would always be really confused about how to figure out what was independent or dependent variables on a graph or on a table. And it turns out that 95% of the time on science tests, the very first column will be your independent variable, and everything after that. And so this column here, this A1 column, this will be your independent variable, what you're changing or comparing, and then everything else will be what you're measured, which is your dependent. So you want to keep up that same energy. So you're going to start with what you're comparing, and you're going to type in, first off, your independent variable. And so it might be types of mascara. That goes in the first column because it's your independent variable. Then you're going to list the first type, right? So the first type might be Maybelline. Oof, how do you spell that? Nope. And the second one might be CoverGirl. This is what you're comparing. So go ahead and pause the video. Take a minute and think about what your independent variables are for the experiment that you're doing, and type in your independent variables, right, what it is you're comparing, and in the very first box up here in cell A1, type the independent variable itself, right? So protein levels, added protein bar, no added protein bar. Whatever it is that you are comparing, go ahead, pause the video, and type those in. Okay, we talk about using brackets in my class a lot, to show you put in what your thing is. Whatever your actual thing goes in the brackets. So this is kind of the overall general layout of how to set up a data table. For some of you, you now need to add units, right? So if you are comparing 500 milliliters of sugar and 1,000 milliliters of sugar, or 1 gram of sugar and 10 grams of sugar, right? High sugar levels, low sugar levels, you're going to add those units. And those units, if you're adding those, need to go in parentheses, right? So if you have a unit like 5 grams of sugar, that's going to go in the parentheses, and then 10 grams of sugar, you're changing the sugar level, looking at taste. That is going to go after your interval in parentheses where your units are going to go. Some people will have that unit, some people won't. For your dependent variable, everybody is going to have units. So depending on how many trials you did, that's going to determine how many columns you need to go across. But for your dependent variable, you are definitely going to have your dependent variable and then your dependent variable unit. One way of doing this is to, in B1, write that category. And then in B2, right, so DV and DV unit, and this is trial 1. And then you can copy this and paste it here. Change it to trial 2. Paste again. Change it to trial 3. And go ahead and type that all the way across. Now, the nice thing about spreadsheets is that spreadsheets are generally pretty smart. So let's see if we can get this spreadsheet to recognize there's a pattern. We're going to highlight it, and then I'm going to come in the right corner to this blue box. This blue box is called pouring, and I'm going to try and get highlight this, come until this blue box becomes a little black X so that it will pour. Right now it's the blue box that's going to copy and paste. It might not let me pour just because I am recording. Let me pour. There. So I got that black cross. That's going to let me pour. So will it continue the pattern? It will. So I didn't have to type out trial 5, trial 6, trial 7. If I can get to this little black cross in the bottom right corner, it will actually finish the pattern for you. So I have 10 trials there. Now I need to go back in every single box and type in my dependent variable, or I can be really, really smart. I'm going to use something called Control F, which is a really, really smart trick. It's a pretty veteran, pretty experienced trick, but you're going to use Control F, or you can use Edit, Find and Replace. So right now, take a minute, go to Edit, choose Find and Replace. I'm going to find and replace my units first. So however you measured, okay, however you measured your outcome, right? That's your dependent variable. Your dependent variable is the outcome. It's really the result we're looking for. You might have looked at how much muscle you gained. You might have looked at how long the nail polish lasts, the number of days, whatever that is. You're going to write in your DV unit by putting it first in just parentheses. So the first thing I did was actually type bracket DV unit bracket, because that's what I have in the spreadsheet right here, right? Bracket DV unit bracket. When I type in my units, I don't want brackets, right? Brackets are what I replace. When I type in my unit, I'm going to type parentheses, because units go in parentheses. Really, the unit is multiplied by each number. So if I did people's opinion on a scale of 1 to 10, right? It would be 5 on a scale of 1 to 10, 2 on a scale of 1 to 10. That's really the unit. If I'm doing money, it's going to be dollars, $17. Uh, so this parentheses says this goes next to each number. So in this case, I'm going to do a scale of 1 to 10. If you did a survey and you asked people's opinion, that might be your unit. Why do you have to say that? Well, being on a scale of 1 to 10 or being on a scale of 1 to 100 are really, really different. And so it's important that people know what kind of scale you're looking at for that unit. All right. Take a minute, pause, catch up, type the bracket DV unit, bracket, type your actual units of what you measured. When you have that typed and yours looks like mine for whatever it is that you did, go ahead and restart the video. Okay, you have your DV units, you have what you're going to replace it with, and you're going to choose replace all. When you do that, every single time we had DV unit in that pattern, it's going to replace it with the correctly spelled, perfect DV unit. We just saved ourselves having to type the same thing 10 times. We're going to do that same trick again for your dependent variable. So we're going to do the same trick again for your dependent variable. In this case, we don't need the word unit. In this case, we just need what your DV is. So if you were measuring time it took to soak through the paper, whatever it is, in this case, that's what the students decided to measure. It might be that you're looking at weight gain because you've been eating different protein bars. You might be measuring people's opinion, right? Whatever it is your DV, take a second, put bracket DV bracket, and then replace it with whatever your actual dependent variable is. When yours actual dependent variable looks perfect, you can go ahead and pause this video, get caught up, make sure that yours is perfectly set up. And you don't want any typos because you're going to have to fix it 10 times. When you're ready, start the video again, and we'll go ahead and finish up. So at this point, you're ready to click replace all again. It is going to fix and replace your DV for each box so that you now have a data table that's done and ready to go. This data table looks pretty good. This data table is definitely ready to have you enter your numbers, have you enter whatever measurements you have. But you might know